Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Inside Edge podcast, episode 8. I am your co-host, Gehrig Schilling, joined as always by Coach Joe Clark. It is October 16th, 2025, and we have a special guest today. If you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify, you can see already. It's my father, Curt Schilling, MLB former legend, joins us to talk about all things hockey, as well as a little bit of what we talked about in this podcast. Mentality when you're the man in the arena, the guy standing on the mound or in the blue paint by yourself, and a lot of what that goes along with that. So, what's up, Dad? How's it going?
Good. How are you guys? Hey, Coach.
Morning, Curt. How are you doing today, bud?
Good, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
So, we were talking a little bit before the show. We haven't talked a little bit or at all since the NHL season started. My Bruins are off to a hot start. Coach, I believe you've declared yourself a Jets guy on this podcast by now, so they're playing good too, 2-1.
Yeah, they're okay. Yeah,
But we were talking also about a kid before the podcast who you worked with. Who I'll put the picture up here, the backup for the Montreal Canadiens, who I was just looking at beforehand. Jakub Dobis, who is 6 years exactly my junior, got his first win of the season.
Yep. And he's a kid. He's out of Czech, and he came over and moved to St. Louis, I think, as a 14-year-old, maybe 15, played with the St. Louis Junior Blues program. And I was working with the NAHL, the NAHL, the junior team in Topeka, Kansas. And we got him. I think we drafted him. And so I spent half a season working with him, almost really a full season. Halfway through, he got pulled up to the USHL by Omaha, and then he committed I think he committed to Miami of Ohio. Does that sound right? Or no, I'm sorry, Ohio State. And had a good college career, but he's a big, strong, young goaltender, good mindset, good habits. I just think he's someone to watch down the road. No one's gonna hear much about him now, but he's gotten in his career stats. Very small sample so far over the last couple of years, but he's done well. He's performed well on a team that's not all that great, but he may be a big part of their future if they're able to build a really strong program. I think he's going to be the centerpiece of it. So we'll see. Time will tell, right?
Yeah, team. He went to Ohio State University, it says, and a team that snuck into the playoffs to a lot of people's surprise last year, the Montreal Canadiens. His career numbers so far: he's played in 17 games, got 8 wins with 1 shutout and a .263 goals against and a .913 save percentage. So yeah, that's a solid sample size to say that he'll probably be a big impact for that team.
Too, huh? He's a big boy.
Yeah.
6'4",
Good sized kid. Really athletic, really athletic. But, I just think over time, it just takes time for these guys to bake and figure things out. And I kind of like what Montreal has done with them so far in the early stages. They're not just throwing them in, 4 out of 5 nights. And, it's not the strongest team in the National Hockey League, but
they're one of the up and comers, right?
I think so.
With Caulfield and
Yeah.
I mean they're as much as I don't like them, they're definitely a team on the move. And
Yeah.
I wonder about that because I how do you pronounce it? Dobis? Is that how you say his last?
Yeah, Dobis.
Because didn't they trade for Kakkonen, Capo recently?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of caught me by surprise because Dobie should be a lock on their roster as a really, really solid up and coming goalie, and they kind of know what the Montembeault, is that how you say his name?
Montembeault.
He's kind of he's solid. I don't think he's anything beyond solid, and I'm not sure of his age. I got to look up his age.
He's 28 and Kakkonen's 29.
Yeah. So
Montembeault, believe it or not, the only guy without an umlaut or a accent over one of the letters in his name in that group of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jakob Dobes early in the season though is tied with my guy Jeremy Swayman, who looks like the guy we need him to be early
Yeah.
on for the
Yeah.
Bruins.
Yeah.
Another little piece of news I didn't know if either of you guys saw, but the Rangers are the first team in NHL history to be shut out in 3 consecutive home games.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
that's got to be a
New
deflating
coach,
room.
right? And
And
I
Igor's
w-
played good.
yeah, and I was watching a program on TV and or it might have been online and they were saying, new coach, new systems, and all the players are probably thinking way too much instead of, and I think that's exactly what they're probably doing.
Really?
And
Griffin sticks too tight.
yeah, big time. And Curt, I
Yeah. I
know
mean,
you've seen that over your career, guys um, just trying too hard, and I think that's exactly what they're doing.
yeah. I mean, because I know they were talking about Shesterkin as being one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the NHL coming into this season. I believe Quick is their backup, or I mean,
Yeah, he
I don't
is.
know. I was surprised to see that, mainly from a fantasy perspective, because Artemi Panarin is somebody who I want to score a lot of
Yeah,
goals.
yeah. But I mean, Shesterkin,
Igor,
legit.
go ahead.
He's one of the elite guys in the league, top 3 or 4, and so they've got they're going to shut the door on teams, but to not be able to put the puck in the net, they'll fix it. They'll be fine.
Yeah,
But
yeah, they'll be a good team. It's surprising to see out the gate, especially when you look at the games. They've lost 2-0, 1-0, and 3-0. I think at home, which is that's a backbreaking type of loss.
yeah, it is.
Uh,
You figure you're gonna get 2, 3, or 4 each game, and if they do that, they're 2-1. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. But new coach, new systems, guys trying to impress, trying too hard. That's probably exactly what's going on. But that's life sometimes. But they'll figure it out. They got a pretty good team, and it's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. So something I guess I wanted to talk about with you, having you here, Dad, is we've talked a lot on the show, and I mean, the impetus for the show is kind of just free form, me and Coach shooting what we were thinking about that week, and in relation to goaltending and hockey. And one of the things we've started to make a theme of this podcast is the mentality of a goaltender, of the guy in the arena, of although it's a team sport, you have
Right.
to be a part of their unit and communicate with guys. There's a very individual element to the position itself, which I think goaltending, pitching, we've talked about golf a lot in the past. Uh, talk about, well, first of all, talk about NHL and MLB are 2 leagues that have some of the most developmental levels before you get to the show, as we call it.
They're the only
What,
2 left, really, honestly. The only 2
yeah, what
where
about it? What about that as a young guy? Because Coach Clark works with a lot of younger guys too, so that's a big theme too. What about it when you were younger, coming through those developmental leagues, helped you along the way with dealing with mistake management, for example?
um well, first off, confidence. And you can confuse confidence and arrogance in a position like this, in a goaltender, in a pitcher, in a golfer. You can confuse confidence for arrogance because nobody is going to pull for you, push for you, or argue for you harder than you are. And if that's not the case, then you're generally not going to make it. Because everybody that you're competing against is trying to beat you, and they don't care how badly they do. Excuse me. And I can remember, and I told Coach this story. Two things. When I was very young, I went to I was 14, 15, 16, all the way up till I was 18 or 19. I went to a baseball camp over Christmas break every year, and it was run by Joe Madden, who was a former manager of the Angels and been around the big leagues. And it was run by all professional scouts, and there was probably 300 to 500 campers, and it was a big deal. And I won Camper of the Year a couple times, and I can remember very vividly one of the last years I went. I was 18 or 19. Uh, Coach Madden was talking to us, and they talked big leagues. They talked way above kind of our pay grade. We were young, we were teenagers, so all of us were thinking, God, I can't wait to be a big leaguer. Just like every goaltender in the world is thinking, I want to be in the crease for the Montreal Canadiens. But we were doing that kind of without borders. No one had kind of told us our limits, and for the most part, no one had said you can't do this and you can't do that. But anyway, so Coach Madden says, basically, if I look around here, guys, mathematically, only one of you, only one, will end up making it to the big leagues and even getting a shot. And that's an extreme number. I mean, it's barely going to be one. And I'll never forget my first and only thought was looking around, going, I wonder what these 399 kids, I wonder what they're going to be doing with the rest of their lives. Because, I mean, I know I'm going to be the one, so it's not going to be any of them. And I never, and that was how I was raised by my father. And it wasn't an arrogance thing. I just knew that was my destiny. And not sure, I mean, it's not a gamble you want to make a lot when you're young, put all your chips in one basket. But then I got to the big leagues, and it wasn't until late in my career, or even after, I can't even remember when it was, but I played almost 22 years of professional baseball, and I never once, and I realized it when I was coming up through the minor leagues. And that's the other thing, is the minor leagues in baseball and hockey, with all the Major League Baseball's been moving to pay their minor league players more and all things that go with that. But I'm kind of against that, because I always loved the hardcore, old school, rooming with four guys in some stranger's house, have to survive kind of mentality. And for a lot of years, in my opinion, that was what separated guys from everybody in the minor leagues. You wanted so badly to be out of that, or you wanted to be so badly to be in that thing, that you would work for it. But I remember we'd always have conversations when we were young, and I'm sure that hockey has the same way, looking around on the roster going, hey, I'm better than this guy. I definitely should be getting called up, or I'm better than this guy, or I'm better. And you find your little friends on the team that you talk to, and you had those conversations. I never had that conversation in my life. I never once ever thought of what I might do if I didn't make it to the big leagues. Dangerous way to approach it, I guess, but I didn't know. I just assumed I go to rookie ball and I have success, and then I go to A ball, and then I go to double A, and then I go to triple A, and I go to the big leagues. That's how it's supposed to work. I didn't think, like, okay, this guy's this, but I mean, I still looked around. I can remember guys getting called up and me going, man, I'm so much better than him. Why do you get called up?
All right, I'm gonna cut in here for you, because I have a question here, because this is a big theme on our podcast as well, the baseball one we do together, where you have a bone to pick with the way MLB does things now, and guys are getting brought up very early, very fast, without a lot of minor league experience. So what would you say, for you personally, was the first milestone check mark of not welcome to the big leagues, but like, oh shit, this guy is not, he's just as good as me, or this is where my level started to level out? Or even if it wasn't that, just the first time a coach sat you down and was like, hey kid, this is what you're going to need to do, or you're going to be here for a while at this level.
So that I would argue that I think for most guys in the big leagues, and probably I would assume most guys in the NHL, the first level I ever looked around and said, wow, everybody's as good as I am or better, was in the big leagues. Like, I can remember looking around in the minor leagues and going, and again, not arrogance or conceit or any of that. It was just, I had a level of self-confidence that was...
It's a necessary ego to be that guy.
Yeah. And it was valid, because, like I said, I can't imagine. You just talked about Dobas, this backup goalie for the Rangers. He came to St. Louis when he was 14 years old.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom. That's not, I can relate to that in the sense that a lot of kids from the Dominican and from from all these other third world countries coming across the ocean to, I and maybe I told you this story, Coach, but if you remember a guy named Yasiel Puig, who came from Cuba with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Right. I was trying to explain to people, because it's hard for them to understand. On Sunday, he's in Cuba making $5 a month playing on the national team. that is,
Wow.
those guys are armed guards, secured when they travel. And on Monday, he's in LA. He's got $50 million in his pocket, doesn't speak a lick of English, and he's
Wow.
expected to be mature and make decisions. Hockey is a rarity in the sense that it does it so much younger than any other sport. Now,
Yeah.
you can look Archie Manning when he was born, he got college scholarships given to him because of his bloodlines and all the funny stories around that. But I can remember Claude Lemieux talking about Brendan leaving home at 12 to go play around the country. And that's mind-boggling to me, because at 10, 12, 13, 14 years old, you aren't instilled with the confidence I had when I was 18. There's no way.
No. No.
So you think Dobos comes to St. Louis, he's 14, he's playing on the Blues junior team, and the team's doing everything it can do to help him, but he's still 14 years old.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
completely different world, and it's mind-boggling to me, because I guarantee you at 14 he's not looking around going, I belong here. I'm better than these guys. At 14 he's like, I want my mom,
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
things you
Exactly.
do at 14.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough decision, but I've met the dad. Dad's a good guy, and they also have another son who is a couple of years younger, who went through the same program in St. Louis, and I think he was a defenseman, and and Dobie might have been 15, whatever,
Right.
but he's a
Still, that's
young
so
teenager.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. But he was surrounded by pretty good people in St. Louis with the Junior Blues. Yeah, I think he was U16, and then U18 program. And then he came to Topeka, and I had him, so we took good care of him there, and he had great numbers there. And then he played in maybe a dozen games, and then Omaha grabbed him, and
And there's a
I
there's a
think he,
different piece here, though, Coach, that I'm very curious, because um you don't spot a little league pitcher at 14 as someone who's going to go to the big leagues. You don't spot a 14-year-old kid in baseball, because
yeah,
physically there's so much maturation left to happen that you can't even that you don't he could be 6'8" for all you know, or 5'8", right?
right, right,
Um and then you have a sport where the ball is disproportionate to the athlete in baseball
yeah,
until I'm 18, 19, or 20.
yeah,
And I'm curious to know, with Dobas being a great example, how can you tell, and I've been around you on the ice, so I'm asking
yeah,
this more for your viewers, because you and I
yeah,
have
yeah,
talked
yeah,
in depth about this.
yeah,
But how can you tell at 14, at 13? Because everybody plays goalie now, right? I mean, that there's 100 million goalies in the US, and it seems to be the one position that's saturated. But how can you tell at 13 or 14 a kid? Well, you spotted Garrison,
yeah,
and
yeah,
something about his makeup. And this is what fascinates me, is that behind the scenes, how do you know? Because for the parents out there who can't accept the fact that their kid isn't the next Martin Brodeur, and he is just a kid who's playing on a travel team, and let him have fun and let him do those things.
yeah.
How can you tell? What are you looking for? What are the telltale signs of a 13 or 14-year-old?
Well, number one, and if a kid's 14 or 15 or 16, there's a big difference between 14 and 16 because of the growth, the growth spurt. They have to be able to skate. They have to be able to get around the ice. But the number one thing I look for overall, above and beyond skating, is instinct.
I was gonna say I've asked Coach this.
Yeah, they make things look easy, and their instincts are right on. Their instincts always aren't right, but they seem to manage it way better. They manage failure a lot better. But that is something you've got to sculpt over the next 3 or 4 years and into their mid to late teens, is their mindset. And like Dobie was always very confident at a young age, and he knew
And you
the
talk about it with Connor too. Connor, when
yeah, oh yeah,
you talk
yeah,
about, and I'm looking at Connor as Connor should be the cockiest guy on the planet, because he's the
yeah,
best goalie on the planet, but he's not. cocky in that sense.
No,
He's just
no.
very quietly confident about his skill set.
He was told at the right age, here's what you got to do, and you have to have supreme confidence. I use that phrase, supreme confidence. And not everyone accepts that. Not everyone can absorb what that means. He absorbed that at the age of 18 and just absolutely stuck it. And I remember I remember his 1 year at Odessa, and this is a true story. We're having our breakup banquet, all right, and he's heading into UMass Lowell, where they have an All-American, a junior All-American goalie. His last name was Carr, returning for Connor's freshman year. So I pulled him aside. I said, "Look, you got to be patient with this whole thing. You've got this guy who's a established stud, and just be patient." And, it's got to take time along those lines. And he looked at me and he said, I will have his job by Christmas. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. Yeah. And you know what? He did. He did exactly that. He got an opportunity to play, and then he just latched onto it, and he would not let it go. And, his
There's a
his
Tom Brady thing with him
yeah,
that I feel
yeah,
like.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
like
serial killer cool, as Mike Tomlin would put it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
we have another goalie that I work with, Caden Lenz. His nickname at one point was the Assassin, because he's so quiet and so humble, but he'll just go out there and just put the wood to you, and not even blink. So he's got it. Like, this kid's got the confidence.
Yeah.
And he's out in Vancouver now. Just got called up to the BC, for a short while. But this confidence Hellebuck had at a young age, it all of a sudden a switch is flipped in your mind, and you believe what people are telling you, and you take it. So fast forward a few years, and I think it was his second year, might have been his first year in the NHL with Winnipeg. We were having a conversation in his living room, and we were talking about, goals and stuff like that. And he said, the Vezina. He said, I'm not going to win a Vezina. I'm going to win several. He actually said that before he had won any, right?
Yeah.
And
that's the confidence that my dad's trying not to be so confident talking about. It's hard.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so confused and fascinated by it, because you do need to be that cocky.
Have to.
You have to be able to keep that in a bubble, sort of, where you don't let it take control of you.
You have to internalize it. It has to be something. I'll give you an example. Deion Sanders is that cocky, and he's outwardly that cocky.
Yeah.
He has every right to feel the way he felt when he played. But when you talk about it, people are turned off by it.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, Deion Sanders, and you can hear Brady talk about it in interviews. I knew. Generally, like I said, in a sport, in a situation like minor league hockey and minor league baseball, you're going to have a world full of people telling you they're better than you and you can't do X, Y, and Z because you're taking their place. You're a threat to them. And so you have to go home at night. And Coach, I've talked about this too, and especially with goaltending, you have to understand that there's a very significant difference in losing and failing. Right? In hockey, I'm going to make 65 starts if I'm an Ironman goalie.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose 10 to 15 games on a monster year.
Right.
I'm not going to fail ever.
Right.
Because the difference, because losing is what puts the foundation together for the Vezina.
Yeah.
Getting beat and getting your ass handed to you in one-on-one drills is what puts that foundation together for the Hart Trophy guy. Those are losings, and those happen daily. You can only, in my mind, you can only fail something if you quit. If you don't quit, there is no fail. There's just continued losing until you succeed.
And your mindset is the very foundation, because when Hellebuck has a situation where he might be struggling in one thing, his mindset is, oh shit, he's not going downhill. He sits there and goes, okay, now we got something to work on. Let's go.
Well, that's what I see for him in the Stanley Cup. I see him getting to the playoffs and winning the Conn Smythe
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he's going to just say, you know what? I'm not giving up a goal.
No, he'll just shut it down. He won't care. He won't care. He'll just go do it. And he doesn't care about what people think. And, but to your point about internalizing it, that is really internalizing your confidence. There's a big difference between being, ultra confident and being a douchebag about it.
Right.
Right. I mean, a huge difference. And the guys that can manage that really well, like you'll never hear Connor Hellebuyck talk to the media and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You know, you'll never hear Vasilevsky say things like that. You know, the elite of the league, they just keep their mouth shut.
They'll
For the
say
most
those
part.
things. They'll say something to the effect of, in the locker room, after the first period, guys, they're not getting another goal. Just score one more, and they're not going to score.
Right.
Instead of, hey, I'm going to go out and, do X, Y, and Z. And I would tell you that quiet confidence is one of the things that, and you've seen this your entire life, Coach. You athlete, if you're a coach or a trainer or a staff person, you'll never fool your players. Players can see the quiet confidence. Players can feel the quiet confidence, and they can see the bullshit. The whole, hey guys, I'm not going to give up another goal, when you're like, oh my God, this guy's going to be a pincushion. As opposed to, and I had those moments. I had a couple of moments early in my career where I came back from the mound, and I was my first year in the big league starter, and I had given up 3 runs, and I walked in, I threw my glove on the bench, and I'm on a veteran team, and I said, they are not going to score another motherfucking run. And I'm screaming. And I went 6, and I didn't give up another run. And I remember after that game, a couple of veterans were like, in the media were like, he came in and was talking like, weird. It was like he was like a veteran guy, and he didn't give, And I realized that was how I can remember, and I'm sure there are times when Connor's had this where I walked out of the bullpen and I looked at the guys in the bullpen. I said, "Hey boys, take the night off."
Yeah. And go shower.
Yep, and I'd throw a complete game, and after the game, they'd be like, "Dude, how'd you know?" And I'd be like, "Well, I just knew."
Yeah, and the other part of that too, and both you guys know this as well, dealing with the media, and what you say to the media, because you say the wrong thing, it becomes bulletin board material, and some people just can't help themselves.
Right.
They just say the wrong thing.
I could have made my career a lot easier if I'd have kept my mouth shut in a lot of
But
places.
It's very fortunate you played when you did instead of this.
But I would also tell you that I use the media as incentivizers too, because I knew I couldn't, what was the point behind saying, I can't think of anything more awesome than making 55,000 people from New York shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that was going to do was make them yell louder, but I was okay with that. That didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And that was that external stuff. If I want noise, I want volume.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to get it in Yankee Stadium because they hate me. That's okay.
Yeah. But not everyone has that mindset, and that as you go along, the guys that have all of the tools and put it together, they're the ones that just keep climbing the ladder.
And I don't know. I'm curious to know, Coach, too, because you dealt with him. But like, I played in Philadelphia and Boston. I played in 2 of the biggest media markets in the world, and I was, in many ways, I was a dream for the beat writers because I was always a quote waiting to happen. And because I was passionate about the stuff I was doing. Winnipeg, not a big media market, but I would imagine in Winnipeg, hockey consumes 99.9% of the sports media.
Yep.
So in that sense, it's everything.
It's their crown jewel.
In Boston, we had 4 teams. Right. In Boston, we had 4 teams. In Philly, we had 4 teams. It was always a different season. Winnipeg, there is no other season.
Oh, they have a football team, the Bombers, and that's way, way, way below what the Jets are.
Yeah.
But then you get a guy like Helly, who's won the awards he has, 3 Vezinas and a Hart, and now the target's on him now. The bullseye's on his back now. And speaking of which, they're playing in Philly today or tonight. So and Philly's not the greatest. They're still trying to build something there, but no, it's not easy. But the market you play in has a lot to do with it. And some guys handle the media the right way, and some guys struggle with it.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
that's part
I
of
played with guys, and I'm sure hockey's the same way, Coach. I played with guys who couldn't play in the market we were in. I played in guys in Boston who they were signed to be X, and they got there and they were Y because they couldn't do X in this market because of the noise and because of the media. Because in Boston and Philly, you played 3 games a day. You played the pregame media, you played the game itself, then you played the postgame media.
yeah, yeah,
And, you know,
yeah, yeah,
you know, in Winnipeg, I would imagine too, I would imagine Connor's kind of an icon there because Winnipeg, I don't know that it's a desirable destination, as far as, you know, I haven't seen any travel brochures, but Connor has committed to the city, and Connor had every financial reason in the world to go somewhere else.
yeah, yeah. He is like Kyle Connor, who just signed a long-term
I was
deal
gonna
with
say they
Great.
both did, him and Shifley.
But I tell you what, like Shifley as well, they're all outdoors people, all right? And I know that Connor, when he was going through his contract was going to come to an end in Winnipeg, and entertaining situations. There were some cities that he would never go to, and
Mhm.
I flat out asked him. I said, "What's the most important thing to you? You know, when it comes to terms with what city you want to play in, what area you want to play in?" He says, "I want a place." This is exactly what he said. "I want a place where I can teach my kids how to fish."
Yeah,
Right.
well,
So
yeah,
it has nothing to do with glitz and glamour. He's the
right,
anti glitz
right.
and glamour. So a lot of it has to do with your personality. And they've been able to collect some guys in Winnipeg, like to get Kyle Connor to resign was a big deal because he's an offensive machine, and he's a great hockey player offensively. And same with Mark Scheifele. Mark Scheifele can produce. So the one big disappointment was Nikolai Ehlers. They weren't able to, and it might have been a salary cap deal because they had
Right.
Ehlers coming up, and then they had Kyle Connor, and they probably couldn't afford both. And they probably saw the writing, but Nikolai Ehlers was my favorite player on that team, skater aside from Helly, because he was electric. I just don't think they could have afforded both of them. That's the way it went. But Nick Ehlers comes from Denmark, and Denmark's kind of it's not a glitzy glamour place.
No,
It's very nice country.
none of
I live there.
those Scandinavian countries are very Canadian
Yeah, yeah, that's a
in,
good point. That's a great way
you
to
know,
put it. They
yeah.
everything is outdoors, especially if you're talking about Finland or Sweden, where it snows a lot, it's cold as hell. But not everyone wants to play in Winnipeg because the climate. Still, I think the coldest place I've ever been. Is
Well,
Winnipeg.
then you have your Jeremy Roenick who wants to play in Hollywood, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Yeah. So
but I
all
would
of
argue
this,
that those are few and far between in the NHL.
yeah. And you and I talked about this, Gehrig, as well. All of this comes down to your personality, right? And when you're scouting goaltenders, you really got to dig, if as best you can. It's not that easy into a goaltender's personality. What his likes, his dislikes, how he handles failure, because his personality is going to dictate his work ethic, his mindset, handling failure, handling success, all of that. So
Well,
you've
his
really got to,
personality for a goalie is like a personality and a trademark for pitchers in the sense that
yeah,
I've got to figure out this guy's personality because he's going to be leaning on that most of the time. Because as a goalie, yeah, go ahead, Garrick, sorry.
I was gonna say, while we have you here, I'm gonna ask you because I've heard your story 100 times, and I know I've seen the trading card of the guy with the blue stripe in the earring, And when I was growing up and of conscious mind, I didn't know that guy. So what I wanted to ask you about while we have you here is, we've talked a little bit about how the developmental leagues start so young for hockey, and in baseball it's pretty similar. What I wanted to ask you about is it's not, maturity is not the right word, but realizing the day-to-day downtimes you have as a goalie and a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. There's a lot that you have to do in between starts to keep yourself locked in. Even during games sometimes, you have a long your team scores 5 runs in the top half of the inning. That's a 25-minute sit down where you have to mentally keep yourself locked in. If your team's on the 2 consecutive long power plays or a major, they can spend the entire 5 minutes down in the other end, and it's something you don't really think
Yeah,
about in the downtime, but there
yeah.
is a lot of downtime for these positions where it's a lot of a mental game too. So
Yeah.
what
And
about that for you
well, I
helped a
think
lot?
that's a great point. And the way I would think about it is like this. So if you look at let's just say we're going to take my head and the 100% of my mental capacity. And when I was an 18-year-old player, I would tell you that 10% of that was filled with sports baseball pitching stuff and 90% was with other stuff. Just whatever it was, my girlfriend, high school, whatever. Now, as I got older, the ratio started to come closer together, right? More game stuff started creeping in there because I was learning more. More importantly for me, I was playing. I was playing more. So and nothing substitutes being on the mound with and so while what would happen is while this the baseball stuff would go up, the noise wouldn't come down necessarily. There I would just stop thinking about it. And I had a point early in my career where I was kind of young and stupid and blue stripe in the hair and doing things I shouldn't be doing.
Put the picture
And
up just so everyone,
yeah,
can see it.
yeah, and people uh uh with much higher pay grade than me basically said, "Hey, listen, if you don't change, this ain't happening." And I could tell stories, none of which I'm proud of the stupid stuff that I did, and still got around it because I was young and stupid. And I'm sure I laugh because I can imagine the one place and goalies like that I went out and did things the night of before a game I was pitching or the day of a game I was pitching, and I got to the ballpark and I was terrified that I had screwed up so badly that I went out and threw like a complete game shutout. And because I was
David
so
Ball's
afraid.
perfect game.
Yes, yes, yes. I literally had it. Yeah, I did something so stupid one day and went to the ballpark and realized that everybody knew it, knew what I had been doing.
Wow.
And I
Dude, you
threw it.
stink.
It's in triple. I know because I did it publicly on the radio.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and I went out and threw a complete game shutout in AAA.
Wow.
And then they still had a meeting and sat me down and said, "Hey, dude, you know,
Can't do that.
not
Yeah.
only is that stupid, but that's so far beyond stupid that we can't really come up with a solution for this." Um, but but so then what I did was I started burying myself in my craft. I started understanding preparation, and I started realizing that there was so much I didn't know. And then I have Asperger's to some extent, so the obsessive compulsive thing was perfect for me, and so preparation became my thing. Early in my career, after a couple years, a couple veterans, Roger Clemens talked to me, and I had a lot of people that cared about me. I lost my father a couple months before I got to the big leagues for the first time, and he was a guiding principle in just about everything I ever did. And so I spent my entire career from that looking for that father figure and always gravitated towards I would tell you this, of all the coaches I've seen, John Tortorella and Mike Keenan probably would have been my favorite guys to play for. I loved guys that screamed
Yeah.
because I knew I was always going to do my job. I was always going to take care of my thing. And the coach wasn't going to have to worry about me coming up and being prepared and ready and all the things that go with that. So he would take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I gravitated towards those guys. And when I was coming up, there was a break, and you look at the 90s and 2000s, the game started to change dramatically, and ESPN and social media started at the end of my careers. Um, and I wanted to be a good baseball player, above all else. I wanted to be better than everybody on the field the day I played. And
Yeah.
I think that, getting to talking to coach and listening to him talk about Connor, I Connor is and I think share an incredibly similar mindset, but we're two very different people off the ice and off the mound. He's a very quiet, reserved, likes the nature guy, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would
you
say
accept that.
my personal viewing experience of the two of you playing at your peak is that neither of you are rah-rah guys. Like, you get fired
Yeah,
up for the moments
right,
that it calls for. I've seen you fist pump coming off the field and
right,
scream
right.
and whatnot. but that does not exist outside of those moments. You were talking about, contained confidence, you know,
I always
like
played
that
the
type
game.
of thing.
I would tell you, and I think I would make this argument for Connor. I played the game right. I
Yeah.
played the game hard. I played the game with immense amounts of respect, but I played the game right. I never showed somebody up. If I threw and hit somebody, of the 52 guys I hit in my career, 45 were intentional, and all 45 knew they were going to get hit. I played the game right. I played the game hard. I played the game with respect. I respected the uniform, and no one ever charged me. I never threw at a guy for hitting a home run off me, and I never did I didn't have a strikeout celly. You know, if
Right.
I was fist pumping, it was because it was a massive out in a massive situation with postseason implications or whatever.
You don't think you
Because
would have had a post strikeout TikTok dance if you
no, I
played
would not
today?
have had no, I would not, and I would not have had I wouldn't have been Duran, and I wouldn't have had the entry song either.
Yeah.
But
You know, you think about goalies in general. I can't think of any that are outlandish.
no,
Like maybe Bennington.
We talked about the most outlandish one, and he's probably the most beloved one, Coach Flower, Marc-Andre Fleury. He's outlandish, but just, you know, in the way that you want
to his
his
teammates
to be. Yeah,
to his
exactly.
teammates.
Yeah, he's the most
yeah.
beloved goalie, I think, maybe in the last 40 years in the NHL.
In my lifetime.
Loves him.
Yeah.
You know, everyone loves him. But you go on from Shesterkin to Hellebuyck, Vasilevsky, they're all very humble. They're all
I got to tell you, I two goalies that influenced my life in meaningful ways. Bernie Perrant, who I got to meet when I was in Philadelphia, God rest his soul. What an amazing man.
Really?
And a member of some of the most notorious and famous Flyer teams ever. And then I was coming up in AAA in Rochester, and there was a young goalie playing named Patrick Waugh in the minor leagues in
Never
Rochester.
heard of him?
And I remember, and he was the first. I remember seeing his name, like, it's not Waugh, it's Roy. His last name is Roy. It's Roy. And we were minor leaguers in the same city, and you know, hockey players drink, minor league baseball players drink, and so we happened to cross each other a couple different times in a couple different public places, and had a brews together. But I followed him, and obviously one of the greatest to ever don the uniform.
Yeah.
But he was the guy, and that was where I realized, you know, hockey players and baseball players, one thing we do similar is we golf. For all the reasons, especially goaltenders and pitchers, for the single reason that mentally you're on an island always when you're trying to succeed. Whether you have teammates or not, you can win and lose on your own. Right? You can have a bad defense in front of you, but you can throw a 52 save night out. I can go out there. We can only score one run, but I can find it in myself to shut them down completely. And
no, you go out and you play, and you're playing well, and your confidence, and it goes back to your original statement, confidence. Right? Picture this: you're in the middle of the fairway, 150 out, and you're going to hit your wedge or 9-iron or whatever young folks do these days, right? And you're standing over the ball, you're looking down at the ball, you look at the pin, you look at the ball, and you're thinking to yourself, this is not going to end well, right? So you can never step on, and I use this story or analogy with all the goalies that I come across. You can never, ever step on the ice with that mindset.
Nope.
So you can't.
Your
Just
last
stay off the
conscious
ice.
thought, your last conscious thought will always be your most powerful.
Yep.
I can tell you more than once, I thought about not giving up a home run and gave up a home run on the very next pitch.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot, obviously, but I could give them up. But the 2-year run I had in 01 and 02, I worked with a sports psychologist, and it was the most dominant by a factor of 1,000,000 that I ever was.
Really?
And I learned the power and strength of the mind. And it's when you unleash that for the first time, and it actually impacts you in a game. When you will yourself to do something athletically, you walk home and you open up a different world. Oh my God.
And you at a little bit of an older age to have that kick in, because you have to have some experience, good and bad. right?
Well, it's wisdom. It's more wisdom. It's the one word that I try to use with my boys and my kids, and it's hard to explain. I'm not smarter than you. I'm just so much wiser than you, only because I've lived longer.
Right,
That I'm not,
right.
it's not a brain thing. It's an
Yep,
experience thing.
yep.
And it's I've seen all these people that come into your life and you're like, oh my God, I've seen that person 50 times. I've experienced that and in our lives, I was exposed to a lot more early on, and my world a lot more early on because everybody wanted to knock on my door and get in my life. And so I
I
got
know
exposure to, yeah.
when I come across a teenage goalie headed into juniors or into college, or a 20-something goalie, I know, just because of my age, I know what's ahead for them. Know exactly what's going to happen. I know how it's going to go down, and I think I try to get that across in a semi-humble way. So look,
I was,
I know, you know.
Coach, I was going to actually, I had told you this story, and I was actually going to recommend this to you, because it really is, and you and I have talked about this. The volume of things I didn't know the day I made my first major league start would sink the Titanic,
Yeah.
right? And so I had an exercise with young pitchers,
Yeah.
and it got when I was about 8 or 9 years into the big leagues, I thought, I'm going to do this. So what I did was I wrote down in my notebook all my pre-pitch thoughts. Here's the entire gamut of things that might go through my mind before a hitter steps into the box.
Yeah.
And then all the young pitchers that came up, I would ask them, I want you to write down your pre-pitch thoughts, right? So for a goalie, what are you thinking before the game? And then ask Connor Hellebuck that question and write it down, and ask Dobis that question and write it down. And what I came to find out was, and so I would ask these young pitchers, show me what your list, and it would be a list of 8 or 9 things: who the hitter is, what the situation. Mine was 47.
Wow. Wow.
And I said, listen, I might not go through all 47 every pitch, but these are the 47 things that I know are on the table with every hitter,
Yeah.
depending on score, inning, how I feel, home plate
Yeah.
umpire, blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
it wasn't to say, I'm not smarter than you. You just can't know most of this stuff because you've never experienced it.
Right.
And
Right.
that, Gehrig, when I talk about the minor leagues and how baseball is screwing pitching because kids aren't getting minor league innings, that's the list I'm talking about. Half of my list I kind of realized in the minor leagues, but I never really wrote it down. And I always say this, Coach, and I'm not sure if this applies to goaltending. I never, ever want a pitcher to experience something for the first time in the big leagues, situationally, right? I can't do the crowd. Right. I know, hey, listen, Connor Hellebuck's this good, but you put him in front of 45,000 people, he's going to be this much better. Right.
Yeah.
And that's but you know that when those 45,000 people are in the stands, that his checklist isn't going to shrink because mentally he's like, oh my God, because he's had all those innings in the minor leagues. He's had all those horrible meals and lived with all those families and made all those bus trips and spent all that sweat equity on those hey, I'm staying 2 hours after the practice because I'm going to be the last guy off the ice, blah, all those things.
Yeah.
That's where the pitchers in the big leagues are now being cheated, because they're getting to the big leagues much faster because the money, and this is probably the same in hockey, the money is monumental. It's astronomical. I'm paying Paul Skeens $9 million. I'm not paying him to do that to get wins at AA Altoona.
Right.
However, those wins in the big leagues are directly modified by that time spent in Altoona with that pitching coach like me who's saying, hey, listen, kid, I understand it. You got an arm like nobody else has got an arm, but your career is going to last 5 years if you don't listen to me.
Yeah.
If you don't understand, and that's the kind of coach I am. That's why I love teaching pitching and teaching young pitchers. I have the resume, and I don't ever trot my resume. Just like I don't wear my rings. I don't need to wear my rings. I was there. I know we won. Now, people say, do you have the bloody sock? No, I don't have it. I wore it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, Coach Clark, as an 18-year-old goalie, I can tell you, hey, listen, here's what's going to happen. Right. You're going to step out on the ice in Winnipeg tomorrow, and you're not going to be able to breathe.
Yep.
That's totally normal.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. It's going to be fun. Look around.
You'll live. You'll get through it.
Yes. Soak it in, because that first breakaway, when Connor McDavid's coming down,
yeah,
you still got to stop the puck, dude.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Your job is to stop
Yeah.
pucks. That's it.
And only wisdom can give you that foresight.
Right.
And that's why, you know, I look at anybody coached by you, because in baseball, in the minor leagues, the better coaches were always louder, more assertive, and forward thinking. And not forward thinking, but they were just more aggressive. You have a personality that's attractive to good players for all the right reasons. You're not a yeller, but you're the kind of guy, like my pitching coach, Johnny Padres. I would be terrified of disappointing you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what a
Yep.
gift that is.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in their shoes to a point, right? And once you play the position, and I don't care if you're 12 years old or 15 years old, you still play and you still try to stop pucks. And but you got to put yourself in their shoes, and you know exactly what they're going through, right? And you want to make sure that their confidence is where it needs to be. But I had one of the, and I think I told Gehrig this story. One of the nicest compliments I ever had came from Helly, and he just got into Winnipeg. He'd been there maybe half a season, and I was on the phone with him, and I said, how do you like Wade Flaherty? His goalie coach, who now has been his goalie coach for over a decade. And I said, how do you like him? How is he? And he says, you know what? He's just like you. And then over time, I got to know Wade, and he is just like me. He's very calm. He doesn't yell, and when he says something is typically worth listening to. But how he goes about his job and handling Helly, he doesn't put pressure on anyone, because the game
Well,
itself, the position
he
itself will friggin' do that all day
right,
long.
but you put pressure on them, but you do it in subtle ways that
Yeah,
fits their personality.
yeah,
It's not,
exactly.
if you don't, it's, you don't go if you don't win this game tonight, it's over for you. It's more a matter of, hey, this is the game you've been practicing your whole life for.
Right,
That's how you
right,
put and
exactly.
I would tell you, coach, that and I hate doing this 50 minutes in, because it should lead off the place. But if you're a young goalie, and I would argue if you're a young hockey player, um, coach, and you and I have been friends for a couple years now, and I treasure this friendship, because in any valuable friendship, you get far more out of it than you put into it. And the things that I've learned, being a fledgling hockey fan when we first met, I've Gehrig is the obsessive. I've showed you the text threads. Him and his idiot friends, the things that they say to each other about the simplest player moves
Yeah,
make me laugh, because that's how I was with baseball. Everything I was I knew, I knew the every single stat, every PIM number you could you could have for a player, because I love the sport that much. But I would tell you that there's a piece to you that I've always gravitated towards, because of my youngest son, and the relationship that you had with him.
yeah,
But I recognize in all great teachers that it's what I said. You're the highest compliment I could pay you is that I would imagine the worst possible thing for anybody you coach would be to disappoint you. And that was, I didn't want to disappoint my father. Johnny Padres, I didn't want to disappoint him,
yeah,
because his opinion of me mattered more than my opinion of myself.
yeah. Well, yeah. I love what I do, and I really love. I don't like it. I love it. Trying to help these kids, these younger guys, and because I
Coach
know
froze on
exactly
me.
what they're going to
He's
be going through. But there's a way to accomplish that, and there's a way to instill confidence and teach them, how to learn about themselves. But it's all you hit it right off at the very start, confidence, and you can
Well, and I got to
coach and
tell you,
destroy
Coach,
it.
one of the things you and I shared the experience with Garrison and juniors, and him going to Wyoming, and I was devastated to have a coach destroy my son's love for the sport.
Yeah, yeah,
I was, and I have never seen that in baseball, to the sense that if I saw it, either walked away from it or I got rid of it.
yeah,
When my boys were coming up, I wouldn't allow, I did, Garrett will tell you, I never stepped in and said anything, because I knew there was an undue pressure that my kids were going to have. However, my dad never, and I told you the story about when I was in high school and I got cut, and my dad basically told the fathers that made the move, hey, let your son, my boy's going to grow up on his own. One of the biggest learning moments of my life. But I never realized the power and influence. And I got to argue, hockey's probably way, way more intense than any other sport because of the billeting and because these kids are moving around the world. They're on their own. And, you see so many of these tragedy stories coming out of hockey and other sports because hockey is so fundamentally different. Again, Brendan Lemieux is being shipped out of home, not shipped out, but he's moving across the country when he's 12. That's unheard of. And so you're in a very vulnerable place, and I would argue that when you're in that place, and for you parents with kids on travel teams, and let me just say this one thing I have learned: if your kid's playing on a travel team that he has to pay to be on, he's probably not going to the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mean that, and I hate to hurt feelings, but the fact of the matter is, these kids that are good enough to play at the next level, they're being sought after. They're not paying.
Yeah.
But that being said, when your kids are on the ice, they're not your kids, they're your athletes, and they have coaches, and they need to understand the separation between church and state, so to speak. When
Oh,
you're
big
home,
key.
and I always thought, listen, you can coach your kid all you want when he's at your house. When he's on the field with me, shut your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's
no, you're 100% right. And the hard part about hockey, where it's so different, I think up until 17, you're always going to be pay to play. Like these kids now, or parents now, they're paying 20, 30,000 or more a year for them to play in whatever league they're playing in. That's just how it is everywhere. But once you hit junior age and you're eligible to play in the BC League, the USHL, the North American League, leagues like that, or now Major Junior,
they'll find you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really that good, they're going to find you.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're that good, you're not going to be the first guy ever to go under the radar and be undrafted,
in
and
history,
you're as
right.
talented as
Right.
Connor McDavid.
Exactly.
Everybody, and I try to explain, that's also a very important point, Coach, that I think we need to make to these young athletes. And Gehrig's heard me say this, and I've talked to my young.
Can I prompt you real quick? Because I have a couple of things. So one,
go ahead.
You were talking a little bit ago about in 0102 you talked with a sports psychologist, and I just wanted to tell you, I think Max is a no-brainer guest for this show at some point.
Yeah.
Max
Oh yeah.
Offenberger.
Absolutely.
Sports psychologist for the Boston Bruins. If you haven't talked to him before, Coach, he's one of the most insane individuals I've ever met, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. And he knows that if he hears this. But secondly, and I think this is where you were going, you talked a little bit at the beginning about being the kid at camp and knowing you were the 1 out of 400 that was going to make it, right? But this podcast, just like baseball and hockey, are not just for people that are going to make it to the professional level. So what, and you said this to every team I played on that you coached growing up, what are guys supposed to get out of this experience that aren't going to go professional?
You're supposed to understand, and sports is the best place to teach it, that everything you do in life, you'll have a role, you'll have a responsibility, you'll have a job to do, and understanding. And one of the things that comes with that confidence we talk about, understanding your own skill set, right? If you're 4'4" and you weigh 94 pounds, I get you want to play in the NHL, but it's probably not going to happen, big guy. Play until they take the uniform off you is what I tell everybody. Play until they take the uniform off you, but understand the bigger lessons. This isn't Charlie Brown where they put the bad guy in right field. You're gonna have roles, and the best teams I ever played on were the teams where the guys on the bench knew their roles and accepted them. They weren't happy with them, but they understood, hey, I'm not the number one goalie, or I'm not the second line center. I'm the third, and I can, and you get. I'm always impressed by the fact that the best NHL teams are the guys with the pounding fourth lines.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see the fourth line because
Big
you're going to
time.
be bruised, and you're probably going to be a -1 when they're done.
Yeah.
As opposed to the top 2 superstar lines with 6 fillers.
Yeah.
But those guys that are the fourth line centers and accept the role because that's what they have to do. But they also understand, if we win this thing, everybody benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way I would put it, sorry, Coach, real quick. The way I would put it, being your kid, Dad, and playing for you as my coach, I was never your shortstop. I was never in center field. I was never the leadoff guy. I had a role to play on every team, and it was explained to me in front of the team that, hey, he's not going to get any special treatment, just like the best kid on this team won't get any special treatment.
Right.
We're all going to learn to be a part of a team because not all of you, maybe none of you, are going to play professionally. So what you're going to learn from this experience is how to be a part of a unit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that the lesson was as much yours as it was the other kids, was me explaining to you, when you leave my house, the rules go out the window. You're when you're off this team, the rest of the world's not going to treat you fairly. It doesn't have to, and it won't. But again, I want you to have the self-confidence to march into whatever it is you do and understand, I can do this. I'm going to do this. I'll get this done.
Yeah. I work with a guy in the summertime, actually year round, Curtis Brown, who is just a tremendous human being. Played 14 years in the National Hockey League, was a captain on a couple of different teams, Buffalo.
Yeah, you brought him up on here, Coach.
Yeah, and I'll have him on at some point as well. But we run a camp, skating camp, in the summertime in Lincoln, Nebraska. Curtis is an incredible skating coach. It's work. I mean, he's just at a high level. But you still have a group of 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And here's one, he'll have me speak to them for an hour and a half. One of the messages I'd like to put out when kids are trying to figure out who they are and what kind of athlete they are, I always throw this at them. I said, when you come across really hard times, you're benched or you're not performing or not executing the way you want to, and you start to go into a dark area, I said, you have to ask yourself this question. Am I a prince or am I a Viking? Right? And a lot of them think of that and they go, wow, I never thought of it that way. But it is true. How are you going to handle failure? Am I a prince or am I a Viking? Well, hopefully the answer is you're a Viking and a nasty one. But there are a lot of things like that you can present to kids.
Well, it's that man, right? A true man is capable of unspeakable violence and incomprehensible love at the same time. The violent part of you is never exposed, except at the moments in life when it's called for.
Yeah.
But the rest of your life, you're a provider and a protector.
Yeah. A decent human being.
And in this day and age, with all and we won't even get into it, the letter brigade and everything else.
Yeah.
Masculinity is something that I think it's one of the reasons why hockey has continued to grow in popularity. Men are still men in hockey. And I've always said, and I told you this, Coach, and I've told Gehrig this too, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. But if I did, and I had to go back and do it over again, and I had a chance to be a pro athlete, I would have been in the crease for an NHL team for 20 years, because any sport where I can get paid to hit people in the face with my hand, I would be a fan of. And as an athlete, and again, we're talking to hockey players and athletes, but we're focusing on goalies, and you have to want the game to be on you.
Yep.
If we win, and it's never that way, right? If I win, and I told you this, Coach, after a game when we lost 1-0, I didn't stand in front of the meeting and go, well, we lost because we couldn't hit. Yeah. Everybody I care about knows they didn't hit. And everybody I care about feels bad for me because I kicked ass and they didn't. So my job is going to be, hey, listen, I got outpitched. The other guy made the pitches he had to make when he had to make them, and I didn't. Same thing with a goalie, right? I got beat 1-0. He made the save I didn't make, and my defense was off. Because
Igor Shesterkin.
I want my guys to want to kill for me when I'm not in the room.
Right. You taking the high road.
No, and there's always a high road. It's always your fault. And it was always my fault because I could handle it. Okay, it's my fault tonight. You know what? I'm going to shut you out tomorrow. Oh, we're in October? Good luck. You guys are down 1-0 because I'm pitching tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, and my teammates could feel that. And know that.
Yeah, I was just about to say what a asset that is for not just the guy, but the locker room that he's in. Just that calmness, that serenity, and those moments where some guys not with that same mentality might look around and be like, "Oh shit, well, Helly looks calm as hell."
And the only reason I can tell you I know that is because I had people come up to me afterwards, after I did these things, and say, you have to tell me what happened, because I watched it and I still can't explain what I just saw.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
And
the reason we've spent an hour trying to pick your brain, and I still feel like we need another hour because
Yeah.
it's this unquantifiable thing where, and we've talked about it my entire life with you about how do you compartmentalize in these moments, and you talked about it just a minute ago, the rage that's inside men just naturally, that you're not a rah-rah guy, but you see that come out when you're it's like when we're playing golf, you load, 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 and then all of a sudden for that swing through, that follow through, it's all that momentum, that rage, that moment just released in, like when you pitch, load, 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 and then when you release, it's all there. It's
I think
fascinating. It's one of my favorite parts of talking about this stuff.
I think Helly's career, or his reputation, I should say, was defined in a moment off the ice when they're in the playoffs and, they allow cameras in the room and he stares down the camera. He's staring down. And it was one of the, that gave me goosebumps, and I've known him for
Yeah.
15 years, right? And I'm thinking to myself, boy, is that ever him right there?
yeah. Because the camera's
you
on you,
remember.
trying to get you to look away, and
Oh, yeah.
what's his
He stared
mindset?
him right down.
And he's looking at the camera like, how long you want to stay here, bub? Because I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who's gonna blink
Yep.
first? It ain't gonna be me.
Yep.
Like, no one ever does that, and I don't remember anyone ever doing that. But especially before an NHL playoff game, and all the heat's on him, he just stares right into the camera. That he just gives him that FU, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome, and I think that defined him.
You mentioned something, Coach, earlier about you wanted to leave a message to the people watching the episode. I want to leave one thing for you young athletes, and it will mark and make you different than everybody else in a good way. When I was young and I started keeping my notebook on hitters and stuff, and I started using my laptop, I was looked at like I was had a third eye.
Yeah.
I was on a veteran team, and they're like, "Dude, what the hell? A laptop? Are you kidding me?" Point being, I knew what I needed to do to be my best version of myself. I would tell you that, especially as a lone athlete, a goaltender, a pitcher, a golfer, start and keep a notebook. And here's why. There are millions of things that you're going to go through and experience, and almost none of them you will be experiencing for the first time. You just have forgot the other time you did it. And you'll find yourself earlier in life realizing, I've been here before. I did this before.
Yeah.
Your practice, have it separated. After your on ice sessions, how do you feel? How'd you do? Did you give everything you could? And Coach, I might have mentioned this. All of us, every athlete in the world, every person in the world, but every athlete in the world has one thing in common. The 30 minutes before you fall asleep every night, you cannot lie to yourself.
Yeah.
You can say all you want. I worked as hard as I worked, but in your head, you're going, well, I could have done more.
Yeah.
I played as good as I could play. Well, actually, I didn't, because I took that shift off. You can't lie to yourself. And once you can start being honest in that 30 minutes, your entire life changes, and your notebook changes, because you start writing down things like, I first period, I was not ready for this game. I was not, what do I need to do? Blah, 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 blah. And you don't always go back and read them, but they're things, as you get better, you'll keep more and more notes, because you'll realize the day-to-day,
a lot of the time it's just getting that stuff out of your head, because that's how it gets cyclical. That's how it ends up rattling around and being the only thing in your brain. I was going to say also, can you tell in the age of computers and iPads that you raised me? Look at this, stud. I got 3 notebooks for our 2 shows we do.
But, it's when you talk about getting it out of your head, Gehrig, that's a great point, because a lot of the guys that I work with, I encourage them, give me a call after the game, especially if you've struggled, because and I did it with Helly. I called it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Stepping off the ice before he got his jersey off, we went through the game, went through each goal, and once you release that, I think you can breathe a little bit. But I try to have these guys give me a call after their game so they can get some sleep that night. Well, otherwise, you're tossing and turning.
And I've told you this, Coach. When I was young, the 4 days between a loss and my next start were absolute misery.
Yeah.
I was unconsolable, and you can't do that. I watched guys, some of the best hitters I ever played with, and Greg Jeffries and Kevin Youkilis are the 2 guys that come to mind, whose careers were probably a little bit shorter because they never could leave an at bat at the plate. and it's why they were so good, because they never gave away an at bat. But think about 600 at bats during a season, and you make 400 outs
It's a lot
in
of
a
baggage
great
to
year.
carry.
If you're great.
Yeah.
Wearing that every day. And for me, it became, when I was young, I was miserable, but it got to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can do between Monday and Saturday to make sure I never lose again.
Yep. I
Well,
mean,
And
Kevin
then
Youkilis,
if I lost again, I'd lose again, but same mentality.
Youkilis is one of my all-time favorite Red Sox.
Yep.
Maybe that's if we do another one of these with you on here, we'll talk a little bit more about the process and bring out some notebooks and more of some of the stuff you did developmentally as a younger player to help some of the guys, on their way
Well,
up.
I guarantee you, I didn't
like
realize. Yeah, but I didn't realize that goaltending was very much like pitching. Like, these guys have their shot patterns. These guys have their breakaway patterns. These teams do specific things when they get the 2-on-1s or the even matchups, and down to where they cross the blue line at. So there's a preparation piece that you can watch. And I lived in the video room, which I would imagine goalies do. But with Alex Ovechkin on the left hash in that left circle, and you look at his shot, you take a video of 100 of his shots, there's probably going to be a consistent area where that puck goes. And Coach, you and I have talked about this for positioning. I don't actually have to defend against Alex's shot. I just have to be in this certain place because I'm not going to see it. I just have to be there to block it.
It's your spot. Yeah.
It's like you explain with pitching, like the inner dynamics of that people are like, what? No way you're really considering all that stuff. We had Kevin Woodley on, our most recent guest, and he was talking about some of the in-depth conversations he's had with goalies, where he was talking about Helly in particular, where he sees a rush coming into the zone, and within that step over the blue line, he knows where the shot's going to come from based on the way they're carrying the puck in, who has it, which line it is. It's the amount of variable decisions you have to make milliseconds by millisecond. It's insane. It's incredible.
Yeah. And they believe in everything they're doing. That's why it all goes back to confidence, right? It all really does, And
well, and the other thing too, Coach, is there are times when people might not believe this. I guarantee you, there are times when Helly feels like he's 2 feet tall and the net's 20 feet wide.
Yep.
There were
100%.
times when I was on the mound, and I hand to God, I was afraid to throw a strike because I knew that it was going to be at a minimum a double.
Yeah.
And they were using metal bats, it felt like.
Well, I can't begin to tell you the absolute emptiness that you feel as an athlete when you're on the mound and you're afraid to do your job. And so, in writing this stuff down, you realize I've been here before. Yeah. I had 1 month of my career that happened to me, and it was the worst month of my career. Early in my career, never had another month like it because I worked my way out of it, and I never let myself get back into it. And it all started with a win that I gave up 5 runs in, and I was disappointed after the game. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I gave up 5 runs, blah, blah, blah. And it started the worst month of my career. And I talked myself into it.
Wow.
And it was the most nightmarish existence I ever had at the big leagues. I would imagine there's times where as a goalie, you're like, if he shoots, he scores, because I have no chance of making a save here.
I remember watching interviews, post-game interviews with Helly in Winnipeg, and they lose 5-1. And he will state to the guy asking questions, I thought I played great. I thought I played. So he has this belief system that is like unparalleled. He really does. But you have to, you have to. And
because the whole world's waiting to tell you how bad you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I use the New England Patriots as my marker, and we'll cut it off here. I know we're going longer than probably want to.
You can go as long as you want.
But the fact of the matter is, in the year 2000, no one cared one iota about the New England Patriots.
Boy, you're right.
In the year 2024, everybody hates them. The only difference is they were sustained success.
Yeah.
And once we love the underdog until he's the favorite, and then we hate his guts.
Like the Yankees.
But why does everybody hate the Yankees? In addition to the New York element, which can give people credence for hatred, but the fact of the matter is, people hate the Yankees because they won so much. Why do people hate the Dodgers now? Well, they're spending a lot, but they're winning.
Yeah.
And that's as an athlete, you're not going to suddenly develop millions of new allies when you become better. You're going to have a lot more, fish in the ocean trying to swim into your pool. But the fact of the matter is, no one's going to be suddenly more in love with you.
Yeah.
They're going to hate you more.
Especially when you sign a big contract.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
Same thing. Right there. Big money.
Changes everything.
So, anyway.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Dad, for joining us. This is definitely our longest
Coach.
episode.
Always a pleasure.
We might need a part 2. So
good seeing you again,
here,
Curt.
Coach. You know that.
All right, buddy. I'll be chatting with you soon. Love you guys.
Yep.
Be good.
Talk soon, guys.
Bye-bye.